What's up YouTube? It's Justin Lowe here again, and we're back for another episode of JLo Talks. And I am wearing my Cornell gear. Got a Cornell pillow over there because of course I went to Cornell University, and I'm here to talk about the topic why the Ivy League is both a blessing and a curse. So in this video I really want to just discuss my experience at Cornell, what my academic background kind of was coming from high school, moving into Cornell, how I studied, ended up studying an economics major at Cornell, and what it was like to kind of just go through, even coming from an island like Jamaica and then going to an Ivy League like Cornell to learn about, America, about corporate America, about like everything that kind of creates what it is that puts Cornell, Ivy League institutions, elite universities on a whole as elite universities in America, and kind of to just give you context as to why I think that my experience was a blessing, but also in some ways was a curse. The audio probably sounds different now because I didn't realize that the microphone wasn't even on. But before we get into it, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of context to say that this topic actually appeared on my newsletter, thelifeofjlo.com. I think I wrote about this last year when I graduated from Cornell. Just to kind of give context on my experience, things like that. So if you want to check it out, the link is in the description below. It is thelifeofjlo.com, and I will put the link to this particular newsletter send, which I think was like last year, March maybe. And you can read along with it. You can kind of get an idea of where my thought process was in actual words and actual text. I'm not going to say exactly what I said in the newsletter, but I'm going to explain pretty much the gist of what it was that has brought me to bring this video to you today. So the first thing that I should tell you is that a lot of this thought process came from a book that my best friend gave me called Excellent Sheep. And it's Excellent Sheep, the Miseducation of the American Elite and the Way to a Meaningful Life. I'll put a link to it right here, or I'll put a picture of the book right here so you can see it, and I'll put a link to it in the description so that you can go and buy it if you like to go and buy it on Amazon. But that book really kind of discussed how elite institutions, Ivy League institutions, and universities, to some extent like popular elite universities on a whole, they create what's known as an excellent sheep. And what that means is these high-performing students like myself, for example, who come out of high school, but they're not keen on exactly what it is that they want to do in life. So I'll talk to myself. As I graduated from high school, I wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do. I studied biology, physics, chemistry, and mathematics in high school. And when I graduated, I was like, okay, when I go to Cornell, I'm going to do a biology major. So of course, I get there and, they tell you, oh, this is liberal arts. You don't have to completely decide on your major when you get in. So you can kind of take a bunch of different classes and then you can decide what you want to do. So it's like, perfect, I'll do exactly that. So in my first year at Cornell, I took, I took biology, I took physics even, I took philosophy, I took anthropology, I took history, I took Spanish. I took a bunch of different courses from a bunch of different fields that I had never tried before. And that kind of gave me context. I even took economics. I had never done economics before going to Cornell either. So I did a bunch of different fields I hadn't tried before to kind of just get like a broader view of what it is that maybe I found interesting, to see if that would be different from biology, to actually declare that major after my second year. So we had to declare majors after our second year of college. What's interesting about that book, Excellent Sheep, is that as I was reading it, I saw so much of myself and so much of my own experience in the book, because how it defines an excellent sheep really is that it's somebody who, and I'll read this, is somebody who was essentially educated for a corporate job, who was almost stripped of the things that they're passionate about and kind of sent into this corporate mindset where they're now almost engulfed by greed and this idea of, I don't really care about what it is that I was passionate about before I started college, and now I just care about making it into the elite circles of America, making it into the biggest companies, making it into the biggest corporations. And for me personally, when I went to Cornell, I didn't know anything about corporate America. I didn't know anything about a corporate job, about finance, about consulting. Still not completely sure what people who are consultants do, to be honest with you. But as I went through Cornell, I began to meet people, seniors and juniors, people who were graduating, who were getting these internships, getting these jobs, and that started to become the norm. It started to become, hey, if you're an economics major, for argument's sake, then one of the next steps for you to take would be to go into finance, or for you to go into consulting, or for you to go into investment banking, for you to go and do something that is considered to be the next step of success, to be the next metric of success. And for me, that was interesting to read about, because what it demonstrated is that there really is some sort of continued elitism as you go through an Ivy League or an elite institution, because they want you to feel as if you're taking the next step almost to, success, quote unquote, in life. And I think what's interesting is that the book says that if this high achieving student comes out of high school without knowing what it is that he or she or they want to accomplish in life, they will essentially get to this point in college where they need to decide what the next career is going to be, what their next step in life is going to be. And they're not going to be able to choose for themselves, because the world is now pushing it in front of them to say, hey, the next metric of success is to get a nice big paying corporate job. The next metric of success is to go into finance, into law, into medicine, into engineering, into something that society, quote unquote, holds in high regard, and that would be what's considered successful. And a lot of the times you'll have people who go into college and they're passionate, for example, me, about biology, for example, or passionate about even music, the arts, dance. They're passionate about writing. They're passionate about something that doesn't necessarily directly translate into a high-paying job. And that passion is going to be stripped away from them as they go through this elite institution, because what they realize is that success isn't necessarily defined as following your passion by these institutions. These institutions define success as the ability to get a higher paying job, which by all means, that is to some extent the definition of success, especially in this capitalistic society that America is. But at the same time, what it does to these high achieving students is kind of strips them of their passion. It strips them of what it is that they actually love, because those aren't the high paying jobs. Those aren't the things that are going to, keep you on that next step to elitism. That's not going to keep you in the top 1% of America. Those are the things that will just kind of keep you broke, for like lack of a better word. So as you go through it, you are molded into what's an excellent sheep, because you're not really sure what you want to do, but the next thing for you to be considered excellent is to follow everybody else that's successful and excellent in college and get a job in one of those top 4, whether it's med, law, finance, consulting jobs after graduation. So I think the reason why I consider the Ivy League a blessing is, I think that's pretty obvious, is because you get a really high quality of education. I got to meet some of the best people, some of the brightest minds from not only in America but from around the entire world. So of course it was a blessing. It was a blessing to be in a community of thinkers. It was a blessing to be in a community of academics, in a community of people who were genuinely concerned about bettering themselves in an educational and intellectual way. For me, that was super amazing. But as somebody who didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do after college and what I wanted to use my college education to do, that's where the kind of curse of the Ivy League comes in, the curse of elite institutions comes in, because if you don't know what you want to do, the world is going to tell you what the world wants you to do. If you don't know what it is that you want to achieve or what you want to do with your life, somebody's going to tell you what to do with your life. And I feel like that's kind of the case for many people, many high achieving students who are well-rounded, quote unquote, like for example myself, as I went into college, well-rounded. And because you're so well-rounded, or because you're not pointed and you're not necessarily driven towards one field, you're not passionate about one field, as I wasn't, you get to this point where you're like, okay, well, how do I define success for myself, right? But then how does society also define success for me? And if you're not able to say, okay, well, how I define success for myself isn't the same as how society defines success for me, you're going to end up finding that society is going to say, hey, well, the next thing that you should do for everybody to consider you to be successful is XYZ, is finance, consulting, and law and medicine, all these fields, which I'm not even saying that are not great fields. These are amazing fields, and there are people who are passionate about them. There are people who, of course, these are the things that they want to do and dedicate their lives to. Not knocking it at all. But what I'm saying is that
that is considered quote unquote the next metric of success, right? As in, you're going to college, you realize that what are all the smart kids or like, you know, successful kids doing after they graduate? Oh, they're working at the biggest companies, they're making the biggest salaries right after graduation. So that technically is a metric of success, and that is something that you can consider to be successful. But the message here is that it's not success for everybody. And I think if you don't take the time to sit down with yourself or with a friend, you just like meditate on it and think about it and recognize, hey, what is it that I really want to do with my life, and what is it that really propels me and makes me passionate to do something, you're gonna find yourself probably in one of those jobs, because that's what society is upholding to be that next metric of success. And so in that same vein, I kind of want to talk a little bit about how I ended up in economics. And I think economics for me ended up being the major that I chose because, and I hate to say it, because it's something that people consider to be smart. It's something that's safe, quote unquote. If you don't know what you want to do, go study economics, because guess what? People who don't know what economics is are gonna look at you and be like, oh, smart, because you studied economics. And let me tell you, well, and to be fair with you, economics is one of those majors that, you know, requires math, it requires calculus, it requires you to be able to think deeply about things and problem solve. So I'm not even saying it's not a hard major, but it is one of those things that outwardly looking in, if you don't know what it is, that's how I felt about it at least. You don't know what it is, you're looking in, you're like, oh, study economics. Oh, it's a good brain, you know? So for me, when I realized that I didn't necessarily want a career in biology, I didn't want a career in like research or medicine, the next option almost that was presented to me was, hey, what about finance or consulting or business or something that is still corporate and will make you a lot of money after graduation, but may not necessarily be what it is that I wanted to do with my academic career. And looking back on it, do I have any regrets that I studied economics? Absolutely not. I am super grateful that I studied economics, because I think that it gave me a perspective on the world that is unique, a perspective on supply, demand, a perspective on the economy, a perspective on the world around us and the society that we live in, because I think that that's super important, is to be able to understand, you know, everything that has been driving life forward in the past maybe 100, 200 years in terms of economics. So am I upset? No. But at the same time, was it necessarily what it is that I love? If I can't see myself doing a PhD in economics, so maybe it wasn't what I loved. So I feel like I definitely went through Cornell thinking, hey, when I took history classes, for example, as I took history classes, the most interesting classes that I took. To be fair, I took behavioral economics classes. That was also among the most interesting classes that I took at Cornell. So what I'm trying to say here is that as you choose your major if you're still in college, or as you reflect on your career choice directly out of college if you're right out of college, look back on it and say, hey, is this something that I wanted to do? Or is this something that I thought other people would consider to be smart and other people would think highly of me if I did it? And I think for me, as I reflect on how I chose economics to be my major, I definitely think that, you know, it may not have been my number one choice. It may not have been my favorite thing in the world, but I don't regret it. And as I look back on it, I think it's important that I recognize that and I'm able to move past that and say, okay, even though I didn't necessarily love the economics major, I can use it for something and I learned a lot from it. But what can I do now that I have an economics major and I'm in the working world, I'm in the professional world, I'm an adult now? What can I do with that major, with that knowledge, that skill set that I have, and how can I employ that? And I feel like it's one of those things that if you don't necessarily want a career in finance, consulting, all those things, using the transferable skills of whatever major that you ended up taking will be ultimately what's going to get you where you want to be. So for me right now, it's definitely figuring out like my online business in terms of my newsletter, in terms of the different things that I'm working on. I'm on the side with regards to business, because I also have a business minor. So using that skill set to figure out what it is that I actually want to build as a creator, as a person, as a professional, as a business owner, you know, all those kinds of things, and transferring that knowledge set into an actual career rather than moving into a career like a job that society is saying this is the next step of success and this is what you should be doing after you graduate. And you know, I really say all of that to say that I think that college on a whole great investment. You learn how to learn, and I think that learning how to learn is one of the top skills that you need to have in this life as we move forward. But at the same time, I think that it's easy to look back on your college experiences, at least for me, and think that, oh, I made a mistake there. And I think as I look back on my college experience and as I reflect on how I chose my major, as I graduated, did I love the classes that I took, and did I love the internship that I did, the career that came out of the internship, I look back on it and I think, you know what, maybe I didn't love it, maybe it wasn't what I'm super passionate about, but I'm still grateful for it. And I think that as I think about, you know, the Ivy League being a curse and the Ivy League giving you this idea of I need to move from economics or business or whatever into finance, consulting, medicine, law, those kinds of things, you know, as I look back on that and think about, okay, maybe it's a curse because it took away my ability to pursue my passions in like music and writing and things like that I actually wanted to do. I think it's also for me something I'm grateful for because I knew that I was able to achieve that. I knew that I was able to go after graduation, work for one of the best banks in America, work for a Fortune 500 company, and decide that, you know what, maybe working for a big company isn't for me. And I think that for me, that I'm really grateful for that, and that's not lost upon me, that not everybody has the ability to do that, because the Ivy League does really accelerate your ability to do that. So again, that's another blessing of the Ivy League and of elite universities on a whole. But I do want to, for anybody who goes to an Ivy League or for anybody that is at an elite university, you know, whether it's in the top 50, top 100 schools in America, you know, definitely reiterate that if you don't know what you want to do, if you maybe have studied something you didn't want to study, maybe if you're in a career that you don't want to be in, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to get to a point where, you know, you feel like you might have made a wrong turn and you feel like, you know, you did something that wasn't what you really think where you think your life is going to go. If you get to that point, definitely just stop, reflect on it, and begin to make changes to say, okay, now that I have done that, now that I have experienced that, I know that that's not for me. And I think that for me, that's been the lessons that I've learned through this entire experience of thinking about the Ivy League, thinking about my education, thinking about my job and my internship and all of that kind of stuff. I've recognized that just as important as it is to learn what it is that you want to do, whether it's choosing a major, choosing a career, choosing a job, it's equally as important to try things and recognize what you don't want to do. And I think for me, recognizing the value in making mistakes, recognizing the value in trying things, and recognizing that that's not what I want to do, that's so valuable, because it allows me to say, okay, how can I pivot from doing something that I didn't want to do into something that I actually wanted to do? And that is more the way that I think you're going to find what it is that you want to do. Because at the end of the day, there's so many things to try. There's so many things to think about. There's so many things to experience in this life, and none of us is ever going to be able to experience them all. So if you're able to find yourself in various situations where you're able to try new things, try something else that may have been as a result of the experiences that you've had, and your experiences lead you to XYZ place, number one, take away positives, be optimistic, be happy about it, be grateful for those experiences. But then number two, recognize how important it is that you did the work of recognizing what you don't want to do. And as you do that, move forward with your life, move forward and move away from things that it is that you didn't enjoy and you didn't like, so that as you begin to find out what you actually want to do, you can recognize the things that you didn't enjoy and have those experiences to inform the decisions that you're making in the next stage of your life. So long story short, dwelling on the past and the mistakes that you've made is not productive. What's productive is being able to reflect, is being able to take lessons from the past and use them to inform the decisions as you move forward. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community that I call the life of JLo, that is my life, that I'm JLo. And if you're here, if you enjoyed this content, like it, share it with a friend, leave a comment so that I know that you're here, and subscribe to the channel, because I really do appreciate all of the support. I really do appreciate all of the love that you guys give to me. and it really does motivate me to continue to make more videos and make more content so that I can continue to build this community to help not only you, the viewer, but the next viewer and the next person that you share it with. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next JLo Talks video.